Hello. This past weekend I gave a Carcassi method book walkthrough. We're going to look at this beautiful method book right from the start to the finish. And we began with the rudiments. So we looked at things like reading notation and rhythm, signs and common signs and symbols that you see in music, key signatures, that kind of thing. And eventually we got to the practical stuff. We got to look at some arpeggios that are at the start of the method book and some chord progressions. We looked at the chord progressions in a lot of detail, so I want to look at the arpeggios right now and just play through them for you so you get a sense of what's going on. So here we have the chord progressions at the top, or the chord progression, and it's, I think, really useful to actually practice this. The chords are written at the top. Those which are the 22 following arpeggios are derived from. So really good to practice that and try to get the fluency as smooth as you can. That's a lot to do with choreography. Really good to think of these two fingers here are going across a string and your first finger is going across a string. That way they're kind of going in contrary motion, expanding out and going in. So you want to keep your left hand movements as minimal as possible, and also keeping the form of the chord shapes, if you know what I mean. So the third and the second fingers keep their form. The first finger keeps its form. They just expand out a little bit, excuse me, and then expand back in. So to get the C chord, you start like that, all fingers down. To get the G7 chord, you expand the fingers out, contract fingers out. So really, really important to do that. You want it to sound really, as legato as possible. Then we get some groups of arpeggios. So arpeggios with 3 fingers. Yeah, so the symbols, the X is referring to the thumb, 1 dot to the index, 2 dots to the middle. So we've got arpeggios with 3 fingers, so different patterns with 3 fingers, and we have arpeggios with 4 fingers. So that's including the A finger, 3 dots for the A finger. Then we get the thumb gliding on the first 2 notes here. We get with 3 fingers, but with some sort of dyads or some chord type things going on now. We get the thumb gliding from one string to the other there. So these different categories which have a bit particular focus are really handy. You don't really see that in Giuliani's arpeggios or in many other arpeggios. You don't really see like a category. Sometimes it's self-evident, but I think it's handy. It's kind of neat to have these categories. So arpeggios with 3 fingers. So I'm going to play these slowly, and then if you're a little bit more experienced, a little bit more advanced, I want to play them a bit faster as well to give you a sense of, where you can, the potential where you can take these exercises. So really important that we chunk these chords. Our left hand, we want our left hand to move very quickly, very rapidly from one chord to the next, not one finger at a time, all fingers at once. When we're swapping chords, that'll ensure a nice legato connection. It'll make sure that your fingers are all ready with the left hand before you start the arpeggio. So the first arpeggio is just going up, P-I-M. Like that. So one thing we did talk about when it came to the chord progressions, we spoke about the right hand, and as you can see, the thumb is jumping around a lot, and you might notice what I'm trying to do with my thumb is a little bit of planting. See how my thumb's already on that 3rd string and then plants onto the 5th. Really good skill to develop this one. You might find your thumb is tempted to play. Once you've put your thumb on a string, it wants to play if you're not used to planting. So you need to try to resist that temptation. So that's one crucial thing to try and focus on. If you can't plant, you can at least, get the thumb moving in the general direction of. So if you're on the 5th string to start, move it towards the 3rd string, you know, hovering over to the 3rd string. I really like to have it planted, but so hovering towards the 3rd, and then once you've plucked the 3rd, hovering towards the 5th. Okay, so okay, and if I play it a bit faster, okay, and then number 2. Notice how I'm using fairly large motion with the fingers. So I'm moving from the knuckle joints to generate a lot of power. I call this a one-handed clap. So it's like you're trying to, like that, yeah? So there's another little subtlety to focus on. So I'll play that one faster, number 2. You could also practice with dynamics like crescendo, decrescendo, or vice versa, or, you know, lots of different dynamic shapes you could do. Number 3, now we get into 16th notes. So we were doing triplets, now we're doing 4/16ths to a beat. So nice and slow here, P-I-M-I. To keep that thumb, you know, planting away. Try to get a nice evenness across the arpeggio, so each note speaking clearly. Okay, so I'll do that faster. Okay, and then number 4 is sort of like the reverse of number 3. Okay, I'll do that faster. Then we go to the next group, arpeggios with 4 fingers. So now we're going to be using the A finger. So number 5. Okay, faster. Good thing to try and use the metronome to get your timing, you know, really, really tight. I'm not right now because it's a bit annoying to do that in a video, but strongly recommend you use a metronome. So number 6. Notice the planting that I'm doing, not just with the thumb, but see that? A finger's already on the string. I can give it a nice, beautiful, right, big dig into the string a little bit, get a beautiful tone. These are great exercises to practice your tone production as well. Sounds obvious, but, you know, sometimes we forget. Really, really, you know, get that beautiful, blooming, crisp, clear sound. Nice and expressive. And then we go up and back, number 7. Faster. Number 8, it's a bit of a mix here. I can't talk about tone without mentioning the importance of sandpaper. So really important, before you start these arpeggios, you really need to make sure your nails are nice and smooth in their optimum condition. One little test that I like to do is to rub the nail on the strings like this. So on the first string, I'll rub my nails along the first string like that and see if there's any roughness. It's pretty good right now, pretty smooth. If there is roughness, you'll hear that sound. Okay, so I just wanted to mention that as well. Number 9, now we're going to semiquavers. Again, just going up the pattern P-I-M-A. And faster. And then number 10. As I'm playing, I'm just thinking of different, ideas. Another one is you want to try to get this line of the right hand fairly straight. Not too straight, because if it's a straight line, you're going to probably get into a funky position. But of a relatively straight line, or at least the shallow, like a line that's not too steep. So you want to avoid something like that, where you get... See how the top string is very tinny. So if we bring that line a little bit straighter, the A finger has that beautiful big bell-like sound. Also, we talked about this a little bit, a gentle arch of the wrist can also help enable that one-handed clap. So you don't want it excessively arched. You also don't want it excessively flat, because that can lead to a lot of tension, and also it's harder to follow through from the knuckle joints that way. So arch the wrist, keep that line straight. Okay, what number were we at? I think number 11, hopefully. Number 11, now we get into a group of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Groups of 8 here. Groups of 8 notes. So it's the arpeggio is getting a bit more complicated here. So number 11, I like this one. It's kind of implying like 3 parts. We've got this bass line, a pedal G, and a melody. Try to bring that layering out if you can, and then a bit faster. Number 12. Make sure you get the groupings right. You might have noticed you got 1, 2, 3, 4, and da da. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's a tricky one. That's like a little tongue twister. Okay, now we go to the next group. The thumb gliding on the first 2 notes. So the thumb's going to be gliding across like this. And notice what I'm doing with my wrist, with my hand position. Just that gentle drop of the wrist to help that gliding motion. Can be helpful there. When your thumb's gliding on successive, if you had to do those together, let's say like, if you had something like, it kind of reminds me of that kind of thing, right? From Prelude number 1. To do that thumb rest stroke and glide over 2 strings can be helpful to drop the wrist. Okay, so that's number 13. Number 14, the thumb is swapping between the 5th and the 4th. That's a similar one again, where we've got the sort of pedal parts there. three voices implied. One, the bass, two, and the melody. Excuse me. Number 15, we go back to three fingers, getting a bit chordal. Number 16 here, now the thumb and index together. So if number 15 was I and M together, now it's thumb and index together. And the inclusion of the A finger. A bit faster. Another thing I just thought of, especially with these ones where you've got fingers working together, is to try and avoid this kind of bouncing hand. It's very, very common. So try to keep your hand still. The movement just originating from the fingers with as little hand movement as possible. Unless you're doing something like the dropping the wrist, like we talked about with the twin stroke of the thumb, the gliding thumb. Number 17, thumb and index together again. Double A. Oh, naughty Carcassi, huh? Doubling the A. Do that a bit slower. Bit of vibrato, and then a bit faster. Number 18, the thumb is gliding on all three strings. Now, because this one's a bit different, I actually don't drop the wrist for this. It's just, I'll use the M finger on the top, yeah? So, the thumb's just going across. It's not gliding in the same way as previously, so I'm not going to drop my wrist this time. But I am still planting that thumb across. Beautiful tone on that top note, yeah. Let's try that one faster. That's a tricky one to do fast, and try to keep your hands still. All right, we're on to the last few here. So 19. Nice one. Number 20. That's sometimes called an Alberti bass. From Mozart. Let's try that faster. Oops, should be using M on the top. And the last two, very, very chordal now. I, M, and A all together. Faster. Final point here with repeating notes that are fast, where you're involving multiple fingers with the right hand. This is actually an exception where if you want to play fast and loud, it can be helpful to use some arm motion. Carlavaro calls this fixation, where if we do this slow, it's fine, but if we need to get faster and louder, we need to start involving, or it helps to start involving larger actually tense up a little bit the arm and the hand in order, and involve those in the plucking in order to produce that volume and speed. But obviously normal, other than that, I want to keep that really relaxed and still. 22, last one. It's throwing a lot at us here. Syncopated bass, and then changing it up for the G7 chord. Now let's try that fast. And there we have it, all 22 of these glorious Carcassi arpeggios. They're all, beautiful. They're all a little different. But they do have these groups of focus. So I hope you enjoy that, and hope you can join me for the next session. We're going to look at the key of C major. So all the best, happy practicing, and see you next time.